are 1 minute late. I'm accountable for that. I call this meeting of Lake Mary Toastmasters Club 6440 to order. Before we proceed with the meeting, please silence your cell phones. I would like to ask everyone to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Our club mission is to provide a supportive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. Please help me welcome this morning our Toastmaster Jorge F.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Toastmasters, honored guests this morning. I do want to start out with a couple changes here to the agenda. So, word of the day. I had a backup word of the day, and we have a real word of the day. So there's 2 words of the day. So feel free to do whatever you want. And the grammarian will just be on the lookout for both words of the day. He'll explain both those words here momentarily. Lamar Williams did not show up today, so Lamar and Heidi, who was going to evaluate them, had a free day today. But it's all right because we do have 2 speeches that are a touch longer than regular speeches, so we'll be just fine. And that also means that everybody is open for table topics. We should enjoy an extended version of table topics this morning as well. So the theme for this morning is tax season. I know for some of you it might be a little bit too early to think about that, but I like to file mine as early as possible. Especially if you're getting a refund, you should file it as early as possible. Not only A, to get your money back from the government as soon as possible, but B, because so many people file electronically now, there's been a very high rate of people filing false claims under your social security number, and you might go to submit it, and all of a sudden someone will say, oh, well, somebody submitted one under your social security number. Now you have a whole other problem to deal with, and you're really not getting any money back for a much longer period of time. So file it early. There's been a big increase in fraudulent tax filings with e-filing going on. So what I'm going to do now is start out by introducing the technical table. We'll start out by starting out with the grammarian today, who has 2 words to explain, Sam Bailey.
As grammarian, it is my function to select a word of the day. Today we have 2. To help build members' vocabularies. Each member, when called upon to speak, is encouraged to use the word of the day. Other members may gently rap on the table when they hear a member use the word. Today's word of the day is astute, and it is to be, I don't have my thing, I have to squint over there. Basically what it means is to be very aware of detail and to be able to use that into one's advantage. And as an adjective, that would be having showed the ability to accurately assess situations or people and turn this into one's advantage. Used in a sentence, he was an astute businessman and therefore became very prosperous. Our second word of the day would be bellicose. Hostile in manner or temperament, demonstrating aggression or willingness to fight. Is bellicose behavior concerns authorities. In addition, I will be listening for errors in grammar as well as excellent word selections. I will also be noting any colorful thoughts or phrases members might use. During the evaluation portion of the meeting, I will present my report.
Thank you. Next up, we have the awe counter for today, Martin Bell.
As awe counter, it is my function to use both words of the day. And also to listen for filler words such as you know, so, okay, and other audible pauses as fillers. I will be noting if members perform any double clutches, which means saying things twice, such as this means. Finally, I will also include things which might be distracting, such as lip smacks and dirty looks.
For the timer today, we have Stephanie Byrne.
Thought you might not have recognized me. It is my function as timer to help the Toastmaster and those speaking to stay on track on top of their time. We have different than our normal 5 to 7s. We have Alexandra with a 10 to 12 at 10 minutes, the green, 11, the yellow,
Okay,
red, 12.
okay.
Pastor Gus, you've got 6 to 8, 6, 7, 8. Evaluators, you have 2 to 3 minutes. Green at 2, 2.5, red at 3. Table topics, you have 60 seconds, and you will get the green at 30, 45, 60. And when you've completed your time, I will wave this in a bellicose fashion. Give my report at the end of the meeting.
As we speak about taxes, I know in a couple of speeches I've shared various quotes from a TV character, Ron Swanson, from Parks and Recreation. I'd like to share a quote with you now about him on taxes. And this quote goes like this: "Government is a greedy piglet who suckles on the taxpayers' teeth until they have sore, chapped nipples."
Oh boy, yes.
Going back to I just thought that was funny. I just wanted to throw that in there somehow. Talking about electronically filing your tax, I'm sure, is there anybody who actually still fills out a paper tax? Nobody? Yeah, two. Okay. 80% of the people now file electronically. And that's, starting in 2000, it was only 25% of people file electronically, so over the past 12 years now, that's gone up to 80+% of the population now actually files their taxes electronically. And just to also go along with growth, as far as growth in people filing their taxes electronically, growth in the volume of the tax code. Back in 1913, the tax code consisted of 400 pages, which in and of itself is already way too many pages. Today, comes in at 73,954 pages. Thank you, TurboTax, for simplifying all that for us. At this time, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, who's actually speaking from the Leadership Excellence series, and that is a set of presentations addressing the subject of leadership. Members will learn about the skills they will need to be successful leaders inside and outside of Toastmasters. The skill we will learn this morning is motivating people. Motivating people is a complex undertaking. Leaders must understand what motivates team members and then use this understanding to create and maintain an environment where team members have the opportunity to fulfill their personal motives, wants, and desires while contributing to a large enterprise. Even though a leader provides the appropriate environment and encourages team members towards motivation, it is the individual who sparks his or her own momentum. This morning, please welcome Alexandra Balda to talk about motivating people from the Leadership Excellence series.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. I want to ask everyone, raise your hand, if you think you can motivate plants. Very, very impressive. How do you motivate plants, Stephanie?
I speak to them very nicely, and I encourage them to grow, and I pray for them.
Very nice. This is something new, but that's not the first time I heard about that. Let me ask you, do you go and pat your plant in the back? Hey, good job, Greenie. You are doing very well. Do you perhaps give money to plants? Hey, great job. Give me 5. What I'm trying to get with this is motivating plans, motivating people. And I'm going to make an analogy. What do you do if you want plants to grow and flourish? First, you create the right environment. Second, you give that plant the proper amount of food, the proper amount of water. Big mistake people do, they may have this plant plus 10 others, and you see some plants are green and some plants are dying. What's going on? Well, I don't know what happened with my plants. I'm giving them all water, they are getting sunlight. What I'm doing wrong? Big mistake what people does is treating all the plants the same way. And what happened here? Some plants may need less or more water. Some plants may need more sunshine than others. Translation. We as leaders think that we need to treat others the way we want to be treated. What's wrong with that? What motivates Jorge doesn't necessarily motivate me, and vice versa. The reality is we need to treat people the way they want to be treated. I'm going to give you an example. I used to be a sole contributor in the Sunrise office, 10, 12 people, salespeople, and I don't know if you're in sales. Who are in sales here? You know how that works. They have fast pace and everybody's a winner, everybody's the best, more than the other one. Is the competition. It's a healthy competition when you're in sales. Our manager, great leader, he learned very early, especially when he had those meetings, hey, whoever gets to quota first, I'm going to take you to a football game. And half of the team, so 80% of the team were men, and the other probably 20-30% were women. So the women guys are, hey, yeah, the football game, and the girls we were caught in our veins. Like, really? You're just killing us here. That's not motivating us. Take us shopping. On the other side, hey, next month, if whoever gets to quota, or if we get as a, get quota as a team, let's go and sell. We get a boat and sell. Some people were, yeah, I'm so excited, I'm going to hit my numbers. Other people were like, well, I'm seasick. Like, really? That doesn't motivate me. And we can go on and on and on. And we're thinking that if you are leaders, raise your hand if we have managers in this room, if we have leaders. I was in management before, so we know that we have the tendency to treat the whole team as we want to be treated rather than treating each person the way they want to be treated. Well, it's no rocket science, it's no brain surgery. How do we find out? How do we find out what each plant needs? Very simple. When you get plants, just pretend these are the caring instructions, right? When you buy plants, they have a caring instructions. And the caring instruction is going to tell you, this plant loves the sun, it's this direct sun. Other plants say, no, not so much sun, because you're going to kill the plant. Other plants say, well, water that plant once a month, cactus. Other plants say, give water every day. So every single plant has their caring instructions. Reality. You're not going to go meeting people, hey, howdy, my name is Alexandra. By the way, here are my caring instructions, read them so you know how to get the best out of me, howdy. You don't do that. You don't do that. But some people figure or assuming, oh yeah, I just met him. He needs to know how to get the best out of me. Not necessarily. How he's going to know what motivates me? Very easy. The way you're going to find out what motivates people in your team, in your family, your friends, is asking questions. Very, very straightforward questions. This part of the speech, since we have some time this morning, I'm going to use it as a table topic. And I'm going to show you some simple questions you could ask someone to find out how can you get the best out of them for that person to grow and flourish. Everybody listen, because I'm going to randomly pick people like table topics. Ask questions, don't assume, straightforward questions. First question that you should ask: what brings you most satisfaction at work? What brings you most satisfaction from work? Rick.
Well,
Or Rich.
thank you. Most of the time people call me Rick anyway. What brings me the most satisfaction is when somebody accomplishes something they couldn't accomplish before based on the guidance that the program has given them. And they overcome an obstacle.
When they overcome obstacles. Very, very nice. Thank you, Rick. What brings you most satisfaction from work, Julia?
To know that I'm part of a team and that we accomplish our projects and we're successful and we move the needle and earn more profit.
Thank you, Julia. What brings you the most satisfaction from work? Mike.
What brings me the most satisfaction from work is seeing the light, proverbial light come on when you're teaching somebody a new concept.
Now, did you notice that Rich, Mike, and Julia have their own caring instructions? They have different visions out of the same question. Second question, describe a time when you felt particularly motivated at work. Describe a time when you feel particularly motivated at work. Erika.
Thank you for the question. Particularly motivated. Every day we're motivated. I was motivated yesterday, excited to show a presentation to a homeowner that's lived in their home for 8 years and has not seen its full potential. So that was a moment where my husband, as I was closing shop, asked me, "Are you living the dream?" I said, "Every day."
Thank you, Erika. Describe a time when you feel particularly motivated at work, Martin.
I get very motivated at work when clients respond in a very appreciative way of what you do for them and how you are of service to them, how they find you valuable. So that really energizes me and keeps me going to serve all clients in a similar fashion.
Thank you. You notice how they have different answers out of the same question. Last question. What needs to happen for you to value and appreciate it? What needs to happen for you to feel valued and appreciated, Stephen?
For me to feel valued and appreciated, I like being put in positions where what I'm doing is important, or at least feels important to me, that I have a chance to challenge myself to achieve goals that take a bit of effort, and that as a result at the end also getting the recognition when I've achieved those goals and the support along the way to reach them.
Thank you, Stephen. Treat people the way you want to be treated? No. Treat people the way they want to be treated. When you're sitting with your manager, when you're sitting with a peer, and you want to be motivated, or you want to motivate someone, do as simple as asking straightforward questions. What can I know? What motivates you? What I need to know from you to make you grow and make you flourish? Mr. Toastmaster.
We just have 1 minute on the clock for evaluations. Thank you. Going back and speaking about the complexity of taxes, the length of the tax code, I wanted to bring up a situation that happened a couple years ago, just to highlight that aspect. You guys remember Timothy Geithner? So he was used to work for the International Monetary Fund, then was the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and was going through his nomination process to be Treasury Secretary of the United States, and they found out that he messed up on his taxes.
Hey.
And he ended up getting the job of Treasury Secretary. He's no longer the Treasury Secretary, but even somebody who with that kind of understanding of finance, involved in the monetary system at that high level, still can't even do his taxes right. Shows you that there's just way too many complexities and nuances that are lost, I think, on most of us, and really calls for the simplification of taxes, which I know is always being talked about, tax reform, not only on an individual basis, but on a corporate basis. And corporate tax reform, many of those thousands of pages are just relate to corporate taxes. Looking at other countries like South Korea, I know is a very popular places for companies to be domiciled now, because the corporate tax laws there are actually very, very simple. I think they numbered in just a few pages, and it's pretty simple. You're taxed 15% on your revenue. There's no exceptions, loopholes, anything like that. It's here's what it is. Did you make this with money? Okay, 15% on top of that. It's done. It's over. I think something like that is more of what we need in this country. I think it will make things much more efficient. Bad news for tax preparers or accountants and the thousands of accountants that have jobs inside of all these organizations, but you know, whatever. We don't need them. It's taxes. Sorry. If they're figuring out taxes, taxes is a 4-letter word. Next, I want to introduce Gus Davies. Gus is speaking from the, if I can find it here, just have to pull it up on my phone real quick. Gus Davies, who has completed the Toastmasters Competent Communicator and Storytelling Manuals. He is completing his Speaking to Inform manual in the Advanced Communication series today. The title of his speech is God is Reasonable Considerations to Explore and Discover. Project number 5, the abstract concept from the Speaking to Inform manual. Gus Davies. Thank you.
Where is God? Who is God? How do you know God? And if you don't know God, why not? I am not a religious person. I am a Christian. Because religion is man's search for God. Christianity is a relationship with Jesus Christ. So in order for me to answer that question, where is God? Who is God? How can I know God? I have to answer those questions from my faith perspective as a Christian. So I'll be talking to you about that from the scriptures and other experts and proofs that have been given. Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters and guests, let me tell you how I know that God is. But before that, what is your image? What is your picture? What is your view? How do you imagine God? Somebody tell me. What comes to your mind when you say God? What's the image? What's the picture? What's the vision that you have of God?
An old man.
An old man like this? Like this old man? Somebody else. What kind of old man comes to your mind when you think about God?
Powerful.
A man like this? Do you have those images in your mind? So what image?
I don't see a mortal. I spoke to God on the beach on Sunday, and I can feel his presence. I don't see a person.
Right. Very good answer. What other images come to our mind? Some people will think about the beauty in the clouds. You know, they will think about some beauty in creation. When I travel, you know, you're at 35,000 feet, I like to get the window seat so I can see. Or sometimes you have these kind of images on your computers, or some of you don't, that just gives you an idea about God. Well, let me tell you, from my perspective, that God is one, the creator of the universe. Think about this gigantic universe that we look at. Think about the complexities of Earth, the world that we refer to. That some cause must have effected that. Something happened for this earth to be created. And so I read in my scriptures, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Because of that faith tradition, I can hold that He created the universe. What a great job. The Genesis chapter 1 and 2 give you all those narratives. You can read about that sometime, that somebody created it. But when you think about the universe is in a very exact position. That must be quite a job to create it. If the universe is closer to the sun, we'll all roast up, we'll all be burnt up. If the universe is very far away from the sun, we will all freeze. You will not want to be in Boston or Massachusetts. Think about that. So the scripture tells me that someone created the universe. Think about the plants. All the things you see in creation, it must have come with a cause. There's always a cause and effect. The effect of the universe is that cause and a greater on cause. Have you thought about that? When you think about the trees, when you see the heavens, like the scripture says, the heavens declare the glory of God. So the universe is one of the reasons that God is the creator. We have an interior designer in this room, Erika, and Stephen too, computer designers. But when you think about, there's a greater designer. When you think about something, the architecture of this universe, there must be someone who created, a designer that put it all together. It's both order and chaos. There are some things that really don't have any order. You go down to the beach, the sand. You know, you could see a symmetry sometimes to it, but all of these things you see, the sand on the seashore. You also think about the water. Every bit of water on the universe has life. Whether it's the contaminated pool out there, whether it's the water you're going to get from here at Panera, water has life. So somebody designed something that is full of order, because we want to drink purified water, but also the contaminated water that is chaos. There is a designer. Have you ever wondered about the DNA of the cells in our body? They have to be very exact. I knew more about that a few years ago. A friend of mine was going to have bone marrow transplant. And the husband has to really study, read, and find out all the details of what is going to be put together. There must be a greater designer to put all of those wonderful selves and bodies together. And the Bible says in Psalm 139 that I am fearful and wonderfully made. All of you in this room can see, you have sights. Think about the eyes that that designer created. Do you know that the eye can see 70 million colors at one time? Just think about that, your eyes. Even in this room, you can look at blue and white and green and all of the colors. We still hear people say they are colorblind, but they must be able to see something. The brain, there's a designer who designed your brain. Think about what's going on right now. You are looking at me, you are listening to me, and you are thinking something else. Your brain is working. And maybe you've already made your conclusion. There must be a greater designer where the scripture says he put all of this together. A wonderful theologian, philosopher, his name was Antony, A-N-T-O-N-Y, Antony Flew, F-L-E-W. He refuted everything that the scripture can say about what we believe. In 2004, Antony Flew made a dramatic declaration. He said, I believe that God is, there's somebody who created the universe. Therefore, God is not dead. He said, I came to that conclusion by the organization of life, the laws of nature, and the exactness of the universe. Antony Flew, check him out. And recently, of course, I don't know how many of you watched the movie, God's Not Dead, you know, with the music and all of that. But we are fearful and wonderfully made. And finally, so the first I've told you about the universe, the great designer, and third, the inner awareness that each one of us have. Doesn't something happen to you that say, oh God, or you text them, oh my God. There's an inner awareness of right and wrong in every human being. There's an inner awareness. You're always conscious when you go through good and evil, pain and suffering. Ravi Zacharias said, shall man live without God? He's a theologian in Atlanta, Ravi Zacharias, Indian. So finally, God pursues you. You can know there's a God, the creation of the universe, the great design, and finally, the moral right and wrong of our awareness. And I conclude with this book, The Case for the Creator. Lee Strobel was an investigative journalist, and he has given lots of proof that you can know God. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Gus. 1 minute on the clock for evaluations. Thank you. One last note here about taxes before we move on to table topics for the day. I know everybody always has different reasons for why they think the taxes should be lowered. And I think the government really showed their hand a couple years ago when they had that thing called sequestration. And it was essentially supposed to be part of the Budget Control Act in 2011. They put this almost nuclear option out there. It was supposed to be this sequestration cuts, which were broad-based cuts, 50% from wherever from military spending and 50% from non-discretionary or from other discretionary spending. It was equally applied. There was very broad-based. It was so broad that it was supposed to be a deterrent, a big enough deterrent that it would force these two groups to come together and come to a conclusion. And part of that whole fiscal cliff a couple years ago, they actually never came to a conclusion. They took that nuclear option. Sequestration is in effect today, and it was supposed to be so bad that the government was going to shut down, but half the people that work in the government were going to get laid off because they couldn't handle these huge cuts that were part of this nuclear option, which is in place, and as far as I know, everything's all right. So sounds like they had a lot of fat that they could cut, and they could probably stand to cut a little bit more. And it is something that is going to be applied in the next coming years, certain budget cuts, and if certain metrics aren't met, automatic cuts will be applied across the board there, all the way up to 2021. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mike Hughes for everybody's favorite part of the day, table topics. Thank you.
All right, so, yes, I did feel the sequestration, and you're not getting bullets or food or anything like that, so anything.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
All right, so I have a couple of questions for you guys. The question is who am I going to ask? These are certain questions. This is my favorite part. So, my first question is, where do you think the term death and taxes came from and why? Julie.
Thank you, Toastmaster. Where did the term death and taxes come from? I believe it was, the whole term is, there's nothing so certain in life as death and taxes. It's because it's true. You've got to pay your taxes. There's no way of getting out of it. I know people who've tried and done some pretty creative things to get around it, and they always get caught in the end. You are going to have to pay your taxes, and that is one of the things you absolutely can't avoid. You can not pay your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy, you can even get out of paying some of your student loans, but the government is going to come after you. You will have to pay your taxes eventually, even if it's a smaller portion or they work with you on the interest rate, you're going to have to pay. So that's where it comes from.
All right, so you're walking down the road and you come across a bridge and there's a troll standing on the bridge. And this troll is rather bellicose. And he asked for a bridge crossing tax. You make the astute observation and say, that's a fee. So, my question for you is, how would you explain to him the difference between a tax and a fee? Martin.
Mike, that is a terrific question. Obviously, today I am not astute prepared to answer that question, but if I was coming to a bridge and there was a troll asking for a fee or a toll, I would consider it the same. It's a pile of dog doo-doo to me. The troll didn't build that bridge. He's not servicing that bridge. He's just there as, perhaps we might expect, let's say in some countries in the world where there's no law of the land, and it's either the corrupt police or others that are taking advantage of citizens simply to make their way of life and earn a decent living by scaring the hell out of all of us. So I would consider it the same, that it's an insult to my intelligence, and hopefully I had a means of overcoming that stupid troll and not paying the toll without risking my life. Thank you.
All right. If your taxes had to go to one organization, be it fire, police, education, medicine, or military, where would you send it and why? Ernst.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster. One has to be a very astute speaker to answer this kind of a question. And I'm trying to think what to say about that, but I would think that the most important part of where my money should be going would be to the military, to defend this country, because if we do not have a country, all these other things are irrelevant. coming to think about the military, I just watched the American Sniper, which I highly recommend. I know some people who have with the external locus. If you want to test your employees and how they think, there's a great thing, it's called internal external locus. One has the external locus meaning more for liberal thinking, and the internal locus has something to do with a more personal, self-driven kind of personality. But one of the sergeants, they said, the drill sergeants said during the, while they were drilling these soldiers, he said, your breathing controls your mind. And I thought it was one of the best things I got out of American Sniper besides the so I would certainly support the military at any time.
Good answer, good answer. If someone came up to you and asked you, why do helicopters eat their babies? And you have to give them a satisfactory answer, how would you answer that, Rich?
Hold on, repeat that question.
If someone came up to you and asked why helicopters eat their babies, and you got to give them a satisfactory answer to get them to go away.
Why helicopters eat their babies?
Yes.
I think for the first time in my life, I'm stumped. I have no idea how to explain that, because, so I'm going to forego this question.
Okay.
Yes, that works. All right, move right along. Fail. As a leader, is it better to be feared or loved? Kerri.
I don't know. I would say you really need a combination of both. You need people to both love you and respect you and want to do what you want them to do, but you also need to instill some kind of consequences for them not following what you want them to do, or so I really think it's just a combination of both. A little more love than feared maybe, but I do definitely think
Why do you think the rich pay less taxes than those who make much less? Erika.
We all must be astute this morning with these types of questions. Why do I think that the rich pay less taxes than those that work harder?
No, work to make much less.
Than make much less. Well, if that was the case, I do feel that if you are self-employed or an entrepreneur, you have more freedom and more ways to delegate how your money gets filtered and spent. And those that are working for someone else, their paycheck is given to them, and someone else decides how their check gets filtered. Thank you, Tabletop Toastmaster.
That is all. The helicopter answer when they intend to find out if you're crazy or not.
that was good.
Well, I'm going to stop depressing everybody about taxes. It's important now. And I'm going to introduce our general evaluator for this morning, Mr. Stephen Morgan.
Thank you, Jorge. Okay, we've heard about politics, we've heard about religion, someone has to talk about sex in the trifecta.
Rich is in. Rich beats that
Yeah.
You had your chance.
Well, I never had sex with a helicopter.
Where do you think the babies came from? We now move into the evaluation portion of the meeting. We get to get the feedback that we are here specifically for, so that we get to learn and to grow. We begin first with the evaluations of the prepared speeches. And that first evaluator evaluating Alexandra's speech, please welcome Jessica Reschke.
Thank you, Master Evaluator. Good morning, Toastmasters and guests, and mostly Alexandra. Thank you you so much for the speech this morning on motivation. I thought it was fantastic, and it's going to be a pleasure to evaluate you. I usually go off the guide and what is required in the speech, but I know what this is a little different, so I'm just going to be evaluating the speech and kind of using the questions here as a guide for my evaluation. I would say when it comes to motivating people, you're a very astute person. You spoke on a facet of motivation that is so, so important, and so many people forget who are trying to motivate people. They think of money, they think of promotions, and many times they do that blanket one size fits all, and you're so right in that when you are trying to motivate someone, you have to find out what's important to them and what will motivate them. And you gave some really great examples. I loved the plant analogy, and it was very funny. I love your use of humor, and I'm thinking about people coming with a little tag that says, these are my career instructions, this is what's important to me at work. I liked your example of being a salesperson and these contests that they would have to motivate you to sell. It's so funny you said that, because I work with a builder now, and I work very closely with the sales team, and we do similar events, and I have not liked the past few that we've had. One was like Jimmy Buffett, and no, that will not motivate me. I won't sell anything. I'm not going to Jimmy Buffett concert. And I loved how the other example you gave, which were the people right here in the room, which I thought was funny. I thought I would probably use that in my speech, like, oh, I'll just get other people to talk and I'll kind of extend my time. But no, what you did was really great, and it really drove your point home, because we saw how everybody had something different that motivated them. So that was just an excellent tool to make your point. You asked me to watch for you talking too quickly. I think you did a very good job of rating yourself. I could tell when you were starting to get excited and speed up, but then you would slowly, and you would rate yourself and speak clearly and more slowly. I also saw on the guide that it asked how much you relied on using notes, and you really didn't use your notes at all for most of the speech. The only thing you had was a list of questions to ask people. I would suggest doing away with that and just come off more naturally. Just start asking people the questions, because they're really 3 pretty simple questions, and I think you know them, so just start asking questions. And again, this is a wonderful topic. I think it was really important for everyone. Even if you're not a leader, you probably work in teams, and it's important to know how to motivate people. If you've got kids, sometimes you might need to motivate them or other family members. This was very helpful and really great thing to keep in mind, so thank you.
And then evaluating Gus's speech. Please welcome Jeff Campana.
Thank you, fellow Toastmasters, Gus, and especially Gus. Very, very difficult topic to do in such a short period of time. I spent time looking at the manual last night in terms of what the objectives were for the speech, so let me begin there. And I think that it was clear, it was interesting, and in terms of all the boxes to check in terms of you explain the meanings, definitions, anecdotes, it was all there. The way you opened, and clearly he's done this before. This is a topic he knows exists. I mean, it was right out there. The way you started with the questions, because I was kind of doing my own little timeline of how he started everything. You set it up perfectly. You asked the 4 questions. They were good questions. And then I was making notes as you were talking. You made you pointed out the difference between religion and Christianity. I thought that was powerful, the way you did that, because you set it up very well. Okay. Last night I actually did a Google image search on God. God is, what is. I was just looking to see what people might think of, and you did it. I mean, you were pulling up the images of, what do you think of when you hear God? And then he got Erika to talk about, she doesn't see a picture. It's more of a feeling. She has a conversation. I like that. That was good that came out. And then you picked up the picture of nature. And so we talked over the weekend about things that you were hoping to accomplish with the speech around be open to expressions of God in everything. And I think that did come out in the speech. The manual, the questions in the manual in terms of evaluation talked about, was the topic narrow enough to explain sufficiently? This topic, I think you did a masterful job in doing it, but in terms of in a subsequent speech, because I have a feeling you're probably going to reuse this, I think clearly you can make it longer. In a venue where you're probably in a much larger venue, you could probably leverage technology and use imagery, more powerful imagery. And then one of the things that I thought that you could certainly do in a longer speech would be tie-ins, we talked about it, moments of desperation that we all have as human beings, right? I shared with him a story that with my son, we all turn to God, even sometimes if we don't go to church. We all have moments when we're like, oh my God, you pray to something. And so with that, overall, Gus, I wish I had more time, but overall, it was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Now we get the feedback from the technical table, beginning first with our timer as she's running around getting it all together. How did we do on time today, Stephanie?
Did good.
Grammarian, take notes.
That's right. We did well. For our prepared speeches, Alexandra had requested 10 to 12. She came in at 11:20. Gus Davies, 6 to 8, a little over 8:38. Our table topics. And I apologize for not giving the cues just when I'm supposed to. I get so involved and so engrossed in the answers and enjoying it that I forget to warn you guys on time. But Jessica, you had 48 seconds. Martin, 1:04. Ernst, 1:30, just made it. Rich, I'm not quite sure what that was. I'll just let Kerri, 28 seconds, and Erika, 38 seconds. Our evaluators, Jessica, 2 minutes and 54 seconds. Jeff, 3 minutes and 8 seconds.
Hey.
That's our report.
And then our Stuta counter, how well did we do today?
Well, first I'd like to commend both speakers for speeches that were delivered with very few ahs all throughout. I did think there was a trend today, beginning with our Toastmaster in the use of so's. Have used. For example, Jorge, 6 so's, 5 double clutches, tongue clicks, and 4 uhs. Then Jessica with 8 so's, a like, and a pause. Alexandra, just 4 pauses. Gus, 4 so's. Sam, 1 so, 1 1 I was totally clean. How about 10? Stephanie was clean. Stephen was clean. Mike, 2 so's. Jeff, 2 so's, 7 uhs, and 3 pauses. Ernst, a so. Kerri, a so. And Rich was just an
Hang on, I should get
No
some answer to
answer.
the question.
And our grammarian this morning, and how did we do with the English language?
Unfortunately, I'm not the most astute grammarian, so that does not give me a good cause to be bellicose either. Thank you. For people who use either both or one of the words of the day, Mike, good job, you get a cookie, you used both of them. Stephen, I counted 1, I'm not sure if you used it twice or if you had both of them in there. Jessica, Stephanie, Martin, Ernest, and Erika, you'll also use the words of the day. If you didn't, then, or hear your name, then unfortunately you did not use it. There was a couple of different grammatical errors. I'm categorizing them between both of the speakers. There was more emphasis that may be on the plurals, such as the S's and you caught yourself on it the third time, which is why I'm mentioning it, what brings you the most satisfaction at work? Before you were saying, what brings most satisfaction at work? But it was in a almost every matter. So you corrected it the third time, which is why I mentioned it. We had some very flamboyant words, such as preferable. You kept on using fancy, but also blunt words, so I like that. That was really cool. And everyone else, it was very well-rounded, and I don't want to keep up using your time. Thank you.
And then as a general evaluation of the meeting and the evaluators in particular, the evaluations were a lot of good encouraging feedback. It was very clear you were listening and paying attention to what was being said. A few things I'd point out is that both the evaluations went the route of, here's all the good things you did, now some suggestions and I'm done. Put something positive at the end before you get to the conclusion. I prefer to take the strongest positive, put them there so that you're ending on the upswing, so that we're going to want to get back here. And I know you were struggling to find a few things. There are a couple of good speeches up here. For table topics, there is no fail. In Toastmasters, there is no fail. It's just simply the place where you get to try things, and if they don't work out, you learn and go on.
Yeah.
If you get the opportunity of something that's strange, either run with it, which you can, or ignore it and say something else, which is just as perfectly an option. As for why helicopters eat their babies, it's so they don't get table topics like that, so they...
Come on, Rick.
50-50, everybody, we're giving out
50-50
money
coming
and
forward.
the book.
That will conclude my feedback so that our president has time to do her announcements. Please welcome Erika.
Thank you, Stephen. It is great to be back. So great that I feel like I need to do a little dance because I drove on the highway to get here today.
Whoa.
And in the future, I will give a speech to let you know why I've been missing in action for a couple weeks. So, a couple things. Please give Julia money towards the all right? I've been told that we have successfully raised on an average of $30 to $35 a month so far. So, congratulations to us for that. How many of you have received the Toastmasters magazine for the month with a show of hands? Okay, I highlighted earlier today a quote on page 20 on the personal growth section. It says, most people fail in life because they aim too high and miss, but because they aim too low and hit. And it's motivational speaker Les Brown. There's some really great information in there. And I also encourage you to read on the next page under productivity. The title is Motivation, What Puts People into High Gear. So I found it humorous that this was what I pulled again before today's meeting to discuss. So take a moment and read it. If you don't know when you'll have time to read it, put it in places where you're most likely to read it. I won't make any suggestions. Let's hear from our guest, Adam Martinez. Tell us what you thought about the meeting. Welcome.
I feel like I can learn a lot from this group. I'm already counting myself.
You're safe here.
I'm looking forward to learning from this group and working on my speech skills, my oratory, and overall learning something.
Fantastic. Welcome. So putting myself back in the loop, we have a contest coming up. Stephen, can you tell us, is it next week? There's usually a little form that goes around. I'm a little lost at the moment.
The February 24th meeting here would be the contest, which also means we'll be starting at 7, so that we can finish at the regular time. Table topics contest and the international speech contest. I've already emailed out info. If you haven't gotten it, let me know. And if you have any of the other questions you intend to participate, Gus is going to be the contest chair, and we'll be coordinating with the rest of it.
Perfect. So we have a little over a month to prepare. Let's see how much money we are.
We raised $18. It's
Wow.
$9 for the winner plus the book.
Yes.
Oh wait, I want to add one now. Hold on a second. That book, money does not motivate me, but that book will. How many
half a thing of Panera Bread, we can
How much
donate to that.
is one for one, two,
one more,
three?
Julia.
Yeah, one more.
Who wants to contribute to me? I'll touch you, take it.
Man, money's
Here's
voting in.
$3. So $2 for three? Is that what it is?
Yeah, give me $2.
This is not, I'm not touching it. $2 for three. Okay. Now, our guest of honor, Adam, you are going to be the one
Wait.
to draw my ticket.
Shake it.
While I do this, any other commentaries or questions about the meeting today?
Please pick 766.
Okay. All right, pick one lucky winner.
From the bottom. Alright, so the last 3 digits are 757.
Somebody who bought earlier. Let's see, who is it?
That's
last week's ticket.
See, the early bird gets the worm. All right, everyone, let's end this close on time as possible. Have a great week.
Next week's meeting?
Next week's schedule is missing from my paperwork, so
It didn't
please
come around.
sign up on Easy Speak. Do you have it? Okay, great.
I'll just sit on it.
January 27th. Toastmaster.
Next week.
Next week, February 3rd.
February
The
something.
date is wrong.
No, that's just today's.
Okay, February 3rd. Gus Davies, I'm out of sync here. Gus Davies is our Toastmaster. Speaker 1, Hadi. Rich, you're going to be our second speaker. Stephanie, third speaker. Table topic, Stephen. Hadi, Evaluator. Jessica, Evaluator. Jeff Campana, Evaluator. Counter.
We're looking at today's again.
I can't do this, hold on. Stephen, Table Topics Master. General Evaluator, Ernst. Evaluator, Erika. Evaluator, Paul and Nicole. All counter, Julia. Jessica, Grammarian. Timer, Mike Hughes. All right, have a